So I think right when we were picking classes, my grandpa randomly told me that he is like writing his own memoir.
Did it shock you that your grandfather was writing a memoir?
Yeah, because like he's
It's not
like
common.
it's not, and I think in order to write your own memoir, you have to be vulnerable in yourself, and when you put yourself out there and become vulnerable, we automatically see that as a weakness.
Yeah.
But I think in writing your own memoir, there is strength in being vulnerable.
Sure, I think you said it beautifully. Vulnerability in our culture is often taken to be a weakness, but for the memoirist, I would argue for any writer, it's a necessity.
I didn't know that the class to some extent inspired you to write your memoir. Had you like prepared that before?
So that's a good question. I had been thinking about my father's death for, I mean, it sounds obvious to say, I'd been thinking about his death since the moment it happened. But what I mean by that is I had been thinking about how to write about it. My father was killed in 2000 in a motorcycle crash. It was a very violent death. It was a very young death. He was only 47. And I knew that the only way to reckon with it was to write about it, but it took me 16 years. And so if it didn't necessarily come out of the class, it was certainly enhanced by teaching the class, right?
Right.
A lot of the things that we would talk about in class discussion were things that I was grappling with in the everyday construction of trying to get my own memoir in fine shape, you know. You were really lucky in your class. You had a very vocal class, a very strong class. What was your experience with that? Was it what you expected?
So it's not the kind of class that you can be objective in. You have to draw on personal experiences to some extent. And I think that was maybe my favorite part of the class, because we didn't come in and sit in rows and just kind of raise our hands and recite, you know, the facts or the statistics. It was a collaborative environment rather than, you know, listening to a lecture.
Yeah, that's right. And I do some lecturing. There's things that I have to tell you that you have to know. One of the things I do tell my students is that if we're reading these true to life accounts of men and women in trouble, I can promise you something. You're going to be in trouble sometime. And one of the things that literature helps us to do is process the events of our own lives.
That's not something you learn, really. You can't teach that. You can't teach resilience. You can't teach, you know, adapting. But you can teach other stories, and all you can do is hope that your students will take those experiences to heart, and I think I will. So
yeah, well, that means so much to me. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because if the class meant something to you, it means something to me too. And I love the books. They're important to me, and to be able to talk to you all about that twice a week is a real honor for me. I don't think that I'd be much good at anything else.